Hi, and welcome to today's episode of pianoTV. I am Allysia, your host, and today we are going to tackle a question. We haven't done a video like this in a while, and I had a question about tempo markings. This is a really straightforward topic, so this isn't going to be a hugely long video, but it's something I haven't addressed yet on this channel, so I felt like it was important to go there. So if you've ever been confused by the number on the page that tells you how fast you're supposed to go, or markings like Allegro or Largo, that's what this video is going to be about. So stay tuned, keep watching, and let's get started. The question is, do you have a video explaining the tempo marks in sheet music? Kind of struggling to understand how it works, like when they use a minimum instead of a crotchet, and I guess the number is the metronome number? Just to clarify, a crotchet is a quarter note. It just depends on what region you're from to impact the words you use. So here in North America, we use words like quarter note, eighth note, and so on, but in Britain and elsewhere, you'd use crotchet, minimum, etc. Let's start by talking about what the number actually means. This is really simple. Just and be correctly assumed, it's the metronome number. This number is telling you how many beats per minute, BPM, you'll see that a lot, pieces, how many beats per minute a piece is. So if it's marked 60 BPM, it means it's as fast as a ticking clock. A ticking clock, there's 60 seconds in a minute, 60 beats in a minute. See the connection? Probably. Okay, the quarter note in front of this is simply saying that there are 60 quarter note beats per minute in this particular piece. I want to hop to the keyboard to help you visualize this. Here is what 60 beats per minute sounds like. Each of these ticks represents a quarter note beat. So if I were to play quarter notes with this beat, the keys I press would match the ticking, like so. If I were to play eighth notes with this beat, there would be 2 notes for every tick, like that. That's pretty simple so far, right? Where it can get a little confusing is when the note in front of the number is not a quarter beat. Here we have the same tempo number. We have 60 again, except this is going to be different. This time, the eighth note is telling us that there are 60 eighth note beats per minute. When you set the metronome to 60 with this example, 1 eighth note equals 1 tick. Let's take a look at this 16th note pattern in the left hand. What this is telling us is we would play 2 16th notes per tick of the metronome because 2 16th notes equal 1 eighth beat. Let's hop to the keyboard and we'll try this one out too. Our metronome is set to 60 still, but this time instead of ticking quarter beats, it's ticking eighth beats. Here's that 16th note pattern we were just looking at. There are 2 16th notes per eighth beat. Make sense? Dotted notes in front of the number present us a different challenge. We still have our number here is 60 beats per minute, but this time we have hopefully you can see that, a dotted half note in front of it. So first of all, how many beats does a dotted half note receive? If you said 3 out loud or in your head, you would be correct. That means that with each tick of the metronome, 3 quarter note beats, 1, 2, 3, are going to pass by. So there's going to be a metronome tick here, and here, and here, and so on. Here's our 60 beats per minute ticking away again. In the example we were just looking at, we have left-hand quarter notes like this. We need to fit 3 of these quarter notes inside of each tick. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So what you noticed before I started is I had a count going before I played the notes. I went 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, just to get into the rhythm. Anytime that your metronome marking is quite a bit slower than the beats that go inside of it, I like to do a little bit of counting in my head. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, etc. before I start, just to make sure I have the right rhythm. Finally, another common note you'll see in front of the number is a half note or minim. This usually comes along with cut time, which you'll see here. Cut time is the same thing as 2/2. This means that the metronome should be set to 120 beats per minute. So this is a different one that we've done. We've done 60 beats every time. This time we're going to do 120. And each of the ticks equals a half beat. So if your piece has a bunch of quarter notes, you'll be able to fit 2 quarter notes inside of each of these half beats. So I'll give you an example of that. And this time we're going to switch things up and set the metronome to 1, 20. Each of these ticks you hear is a half note beat, which means if you had a bunch of quarter notes, you would have to play 2 quarter notes. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Anyway, if you want to get technical, that means that my quarter note beat, if it's 120 in half notes, it would be 240 in quarter notes. Finally, let's talk briefly about the random Italian words you're going to see in your music. Sometimes words like Allegro come with a tempo number, sometimes they don't. Sometimes your page will just say Allegro. These are the speeds that you're the most likely to come across. They're really common and the ones that I tend to teach first, especially these 4. You'll see Largo, Andante, Moderato, and Allegro quite a bit. But how do you know what speeds each of these are exactly? Like, how slow is Largo? How moderate is Moderato? There are general ranges for each of these tempos, but you mostly have some wiggle room. Allegro, for example, could be, according to this chart anyway, it could be anywhere from 120 beats per minute to 168. But that depends on a lot of factors, not just your abilities and the piece itself. It depends on the notes involved. So for example, if it's marked Allegro and the entire piece is like jam-packed full of 16th notes, then you're probably not going to play it with the same like beats per minute speed as an Allegro with nothing but quarter notes, because it's much easier to play 120 beats per minute of quarter notes than 120 beats per minute of 16th notes. So this is why, to some extent, choosing a tempo is really a judgment call. What I usually do when learning a new piece is listen to several performer examples to get a feel for it at various speeds, because performers are going to play these at different speeds. So say, for example, I was learning Bach's Allegro. We know Allegro means fast. What I'll do is I'll listen to a few recordings, and almost all of these recordings are going to be different tempos. Some will be faster, some will be slower, again, because Allegro is a loosely defined term. Based on that, and my abilities, and my preferences, and my style, that's how I'll determine if I'm going closer to like 120, if I'm going more like 130, 140, and so on. So that's the gist of how you would follow Italian tempo markings. And that is all for today's Q&A video. I hope that clarified things for you a little bit. And if you have any questions of your own, feel free to leave them in the comments. And if I think it's a question that a lot of people will get benefit from, I might bring it up the next time we do a Q&A session on this channel. I do like to look at your comments and see what you guys are talking about and what you're asking. And yeah, and go from there. So thank you so much for watching. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you in the next video. Finally, let's talk briefly about the random Italian words you'll see in your music. Why Italian? Actually, I don't want to get into that.